Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Stephanie Christopher, and I am part of our collaborative marketing team, and I will be one of your moderators today. During this webinar, you will hear from Northwest Arkansas Community College and St. Louis University on their migration to Workday. They'll share a little about their experience, why this jump made sense for their school, and what they learned, as well as advice for those considering making this leap to Workday as well. Before we get started though, please know that everybody is on mute and will remain muted for the duration of the webinar. However, if you have any questions, shoot them over in the chat and we'll keep an eye on those and ask them throughout the webinar as we see fit. If your question does not get answered, we will be sure to follow up with you as soon as possible after the webinar. And lastly, this webinar is being recorded. So it will be available for playback again tomorrow. So with that, I will hand it over to our real moderator of the day, Brian McDowell, to kick off introductions.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Brian McDowell. Thank you for the introduction. I am a senior principal consultant with our student practice at Collaborative Solutions. So my role predominantly these days is a student architect. I came from higher education where I worked for about 15 years, actually predominantly the University of Kansas in a number of roles. I have a doctorate in higher education leadership and administration. So I do this higher ed thing quite a bit and actually even study it for a living because I am a sane individual, I promise. Anyway, my role in this is to facilitate and help moderate the conversation and keep some things rolling. So I'm going to jump quickly out of the way to introduce our two speakers who are really the stars of today's show, Mickey Luna and Lindsey Robinson. So Mickey, if you want to kick that off with your introduction, and we'll keep things rolling.
Yep, sounds great. Thanks, Brian. So my name is Mickey Luna. I've been the Vice President of Human Resources at St. Louis University for about 5.5 years. Prior to that move into higher education, I spent time in leadership, HR leadership positions in the mining and construction industries, as well as some time in private practice as a labor and employment lawyer. Tell you a little bit about St. Louis University. It is a Catholic Jesuit university founded in 1818, so 200 years old. It was the first university established west of the Mississippi River, with our main campus in St. Louis, Missouri, and a satellite campus in Madrid, Spain. We employ approximately 4,000 full-time faculty and staff. At SLU, we have 4 primary components to our mission: education, healthcare, research, and service. So we offer traditional graduate and undergraduate course offerings to our 13,000 students. We also maintain law and medical schools. As part of our healthcare mission, we have a 500+ physician practice, which represents approximately half of our faculty and staff population, as well as half of the university's revenue. That's a little bit about St. Louis University, and turn it over to Lindsey.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsey Robinson, and I'm from Northwest Arkansas Community College in Bentonville, Arkansas. And it's great to be here today. We are very excited to share a few things with you about our deployments. A little bit about myself. I've been in higher education for 10 years exactly, and most of that time has been predominantly in finance. So working in the finance office, accounting, but then I also started overseeing the treasurer's office and student accounts. So I got a lot of cross-functional work with our registrar, advising, as well as financial aid. So a lot of pieces involved with student accounts. All roads lead to finance is what we like to say. And most recently, a big project manager for our Workday deployment, HCM, payroll, and finance. So I've been in this position for so it's very exciting. About NWAC, we were founded in 1989, and we are the largest out of 22 community colleges in Arkansas, and that's something we proudly hold to our hearts. We've got some great programs. We have a very world-class Brightwater program, culinary program for sure. We just had an immigration design lab building come online about a year ago. With that, we take construction technology and pair it with art and woodworking and ceramics, and just kind of take both of those programs and merge them into one, or you could do 2 separately. It's very, very interesting. And then we had another location get a brand new building called our Washington County Center, which is in Springdale, Arkansas. So we serve a wide variety of students, 8,000 credit students, 15,000 students served total. And one of the biggest programs that we have is our high school programs for students. So they can graduate high school with not only a high school diploma, but with a degree as well. And so we've been pretty proud of that as well. Brian, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you both very much for that initial introduction. We're going to hear from both here in a little bit more detail in just a second. Our agenda for this session, clearly introductions. We have checked off a box. I'm always excited when we hit the agenda and we're already done with something. We're going to invite both Mickey and Lindsey to speak again, talking a little bit about their initial transformation story and some thoughts there. And then we're going to move on to more of a fireside chat format where we're going to talk together a little bit. We have some questions that we are going to ask, and then, of course, we want to hear from you all if there's anything that is important and near and dear to your heart as you consider a Workday implementation. So that agenda being said, I am again going to turn over to Mickey to start talking about the St. Louis University experience.
Thanks, Brian. So I think we have a slide it's a slide that we used as we rolled out the decision we made back in 2018, or really probably more 19, to make this move to Workday. So, but maybe as a starting point, I'd like to share just some of the background as to how we got to that position. So when I arrived at St. Louis University, we were in the midst of a strategic planning process. And through that process, one of the things that was a recurring theme across the institution was real dissatisfaction with the way we operated. So people found that our processes were confusing, bureaucratic, burdensome, slow, inflexible. There was a real lack of access to information. So lack of transparency at times too, or the concerns of that. We, if I was going to summarize a lot of what we heard on that topic, I'd put it into two buckets. We had process issues, so the ways that we operated on a daily basis that were inefficient, ineffective, inconsistent, and lacked transparency. And then data issues. The way we entered data, organized it, categorized it, and reported it was similarly inefficient or incorrect. Some examples would be our payroll processes when people were processing pay changes or additional pay or pay adjustment process. All of those steps were manual. The approval processes were outside of our system. They required sometimes many approvals, sometimes very few. And since they were done on paper, people often didn't know where they were in the approval process. When someone wanted to apply for a job at SLU, the application site that we used often was difficult and burdensome. It would take up to an hour to complete that process, and we lost 25% of our applicants simply during the process. They just would simply give up. On the benefits side, some of our benefits were contained in our ERP system, but some were not because the system could not accommodate it. And all of our work with sending files to vendors were done manually, which created a lot of work and also the potential for errors. And then data. Reporting it was difficult. If I had, from a human resources standpoint, if we had to produce headcount data across the institution or based on a college or a division, often that work took hours to put together and took many people to check it and make sure that it was correct. So getting data out of our system was not easy. And that led to all of those challenges really led to frustration, diminished credibility, and a perceived lack of transparency. When something was sitting in someone's queue, no one could see where it was sitting in that process, and that created challenges that really undermined our culture. And as we thought about it, many of these existing system challenges and the limitations circled back to our system and what we could and could not do in the system we had. And we recognized that what we had in place had been in place for over 15 years and was something where we had to make a change. And so with that recognition, we decided to start the process of thinking about where do we go? And Really, as we did that, there were three primary goals that we talked about. And the slide is probably small for some of you to read, but in those goals, we talked about providing consistent integrated data and processes across the enterprise so we could support more effective and efficient operations. We knew we needed to enable change in our university operations and our business processes to better respond to future challenges and opportunities. We all know how much is changing in higher ed and in the healthcare industry where we also operate. And we really needed to offer a straightforward, user-friendly solution so that we would have rapid adoption of that system and that the usage would be sustained and continued. After going through a process to review the various solutions, we ultimately decided and selected Workday as the ERP that we were going to move toward. And some of the advantages we talked about and referenced in the slide below that I think I'd like to highlight that we shared with our community in making that decision were, Workday offers a leading edge technology that is regularly updated with enhancements and new features. So we know Workday's committed to the higher ed space. You can see that by the number of institutions moving in that direction. That gave us some comfort that they would continue to be invested in the solutions that we needed for our industry, and also that they were committed to those regular enhancements. So 2 times a year, you're seeing updates, and that gave us comfort that we knew we were not only investing in a state-of-the-art technology, but one that would continue to invest in improving. The next thing that we really valued in Workday was state-of-the-art reporting tools. We needed to have access easily and quickly to data and to be able to run reports and have dashboards. We chose Workday because we saw there was an improved ability to track the status of human resource and finance processes. So as I speak from through a human resources lens, it's really important when people want to request a position be filled or a change to compensation, whatever it might be, that there are clearly defined business processes so everyone knows what steps you have to take to do it. And it's done in a system so that it's not, it's done efficiently in a system and it's transparent. If something's sitting in someone's queue, people know where it is instead of wondering why something's taking 3 months to get approved. We also recognized in today's environment, people do so much on their phones. We needed a solution that offered mobile capabilities to accommodate employees wherever they were working. And then the final one I would emphasize is the importance of just eliminating paper forms. So automating all of our business processes for the reasons that I described earlier. We decided to move forward with Workday. We started our HCM implementation on January 1 of 2019. So we did a 12-month implementation at that time. We also implemented recruiting, payroll, time, absence, compensation, and benefits. So pretty big lift over a 12-month period. We went live with those on January 1, 2020. We did a second phase implementation for finance, talent, and learning, which went live on July 1, 2020. So that's our story. I look forward to sharing more about our experiences and what we've learned through the process in the next segment. So with Brian, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. And actually, I'm going to pass it directly over to Lindsey to, in a similar fashion, please discuss how things went at Northwest Arkansas Community College. It is also live more recently, which is very exciting celebration there with Workday. Lindsey.
Thanks, Brian, Dr. Brian. Yeah, so for several of the reasons that Mickey mentioned earlier is the same reasons why we decided to move to Workday. But I would also toss in students first. When we started talking about Workday, it was really from the viewpoint and the pain point, the bottlenecks students were experiencing whenever they would try to apply to be a student at NWAC or register. And it just wasn't a good feel because everything was so clunky, and our legacy system, of course, operates in silos. And so, that's kind of how we would operate as an organization. Not that we wanted to, it was just kind of that way because of our system. and how you get access to different forms, different data based on your role. So it was kind of clunky. We couldn't really get good reports. We would spend a lot of time, I worked in budget, so we would spend a lot of time with the compensation person in HR trying to figure out headcounts, trying to figure out cost, employees, and overall compensation packages. And it was just really difficult. We never felt like we had a good solid answer on any report we ran, because you could seriously just take the data out of our legacy system and kind of massage it to depict whatever you want. So for a long time, it was always like back up your numbers, and so a lot of time just trying to justify like pennies and cents, and it was just a waste of time. So going through our deployment off in last year, we had a 13-month deployment, and we decided to do a big bang approach, which involves all of HCM, payroll, and finance. So all of the HCM modules like time and absence, and benefits, compensation, recruitment, all of that, and payroll, and then finance, all of the work streams under finance as well. We did go live just a couple of months ago, October 5th, which was pretty exciting. And I think one thing that's kind of interesting about our statement of work and our project charter, even our goals and objectives, we really wanted to standardize and streamline our processes, because we knew finance, HCM, and payroll, we were just the beginning of what the bigger picture was, which is student. So get the foundation built first, get the water running through and the electricity turned on, and then bring in student. And we will kick off our student implementation this spring. One of the things that I think why Workday, there's a star down there, it says create a people-centric environment. And we were so processes and having to send out reminders to people and help them out as things were just broken in Banner, and then it just kind of put a strain on our internal relationships, because I'm vendors, and so coworkers are seeing Lindsey as, oh, she's sending another reminder, but it's not me, it's the system. Like the system should be taking that heavy lift for you so you can do the more important work. And so when we did our project, that was really something that I wanted to focus on, was creating a people-centric environment and showing everyone that Workday is a tool to make your jobs easier. It does not replace that human connection. It just allows you to serve in your role in a better capacity and for growth. So, and I can't kick it back to Mickey without saying the Workday Mobile App. We were so excited about that because students are always on their phones. They expect that ease and that streamlined approach whenever registering for classes, just like they do when they're shopping on Amazon. And same for employees. Like, how do you get the best talent to come work for you whenever they can't submit an application online, and it's easier to walk into your HR department and do a paper form or have them walk you through it. So it was just a bad look on the front end for us, and we were hoping, by cleaning up some of that we could turn our culture around and be, futuristic. So.
All right, thank you, Lindsey.
Brian.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All right, so we are going to move on to the next segment of our discussion, which I really appreciate Stephanie providing the actual fireside for our fireside chat. I'm going to invite both Mickey and Lindsey to turn on your cameras for this portion of the discussions. We'll all be on together in order to field questions. I have some that we have prepared to help kind of move a discussion forward and discuss some things. And then, of course, we invite you as the audience to send your questions in. Kind of as a starting point, because I already see a question that is available. So Mickey and Lindsey, this hopefully is a relatively straightforward one I'll throw out to you. There's a question of what version of Banner were you on prior to going to Workday? So could you address that really quickly, kind of where you were with your existing Banner implementation? That gives us sort of our starting point, and then we'll start talking about some of the other questions that we've had as well. And Lindsey, if you want to answer first, even, I'll pass it to you.
Okay. Yeah, so we were on Banner 9 whenever we decided to make the switch to Workday. We were Banner 8 and went through that big, huge upgrade to Banner 9. And actually, people didn't want to leave Banner 8, and we had to kick some of them out so we could make the transition to Banner 9. Of course, it was much better because as soon as you logged in, or at least for us, as soon as you logged into Banner 9, you were met with an error saying that you would have to log back out and return back home. So it just wasn't a good look for us. How about you, Mickey?
I think we were in the same position, Lindsay. I think we had, so the timing worked out where we had to move to Banner 9 before we made the move to Workday. So we did do that upgrade a few months, I think, before we actually did the started the Workday implementation.
Perfect. Thank you both. So again, if you have questions, please feel free to submit those to us. But kind of getting us rolling with some of the ones that we have prepared. Mickey, could you talk a little bit about the initial benefits of your migration from Banner to Workday?
Sure. So, thinking about this primarily from a human resources lens, there's multiples, but a few that come to mind right off the bat would be, so security. I don't know about you, Lindsay, or anyone else, but talk about it really historically a nightmare for us as far as making sure when we hire people or move people into roles, how do we make sure they have the right system access? So the security process historically was we had people who had to go in and try to get people the right security, and often that took a long time, or we didn't get it right after 2 or 3 or 4 tries, but eventually we got there. But major frustration point. Really great add on here was the security feature is role-based. So when we assign security to roles, as soon as someone moves into that role, the security is attached to that role and they instantly have the access that they need. Now, I mean, that was a huge efficiency that we found when we moved to Workday. Faster access to HR data. So whether it be headcount data, compensation data, diversity data, all of those things we're able to really now have in dashboards that we have instant access and that it's current. Whereas historically we would have to run reports that might take a few hours to run and then again review them with multiple people to confirm the data. So really quick access. We had really even one of our provosts commented how valuable it was through this last few months to be able to go into Workday and instantly find compensation data that he needed in making certain decisions. So faster access to data, benefits integrations. We reduced the errors that we found when we were doing manual interventions and the time associated with it. Eliminating paper processes and payroll was a big one. And then really business processes. So we had a chance through this to really think about how do we want our business processes to operate, whether it be getting approval to hire someone, create a new position, really rethink what are the approval levels and create consistent, uniform approval processes in Workday that were transparent. I can't tell you enough how important that transparency has been for our culture, for people to know where things sit. And if something's not getting approved, they know why or who to go to. And that was a black box before that really was a major frustration point. So those are a few of the ones that come to mind for me. I don't know, Lindsay, if you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally echo the same points that you made, Mickey, and I would add as well with the transparency of where things are in the system, with the process, being able to look up a purchase order and see who needs to approve it without having to hunt somebody down with an email or a Teams chat or a telephone call is great. And I really so we've only been in Workday Live for 2 months now. So I think initially when employees were getting into the system, they loved being able to update a profile picture. We didn't have that in our old one. And they liked being able to see the transparency of our organizational chart because previously, we just had PDF copies that would get updated every now and again and, be available to us, but it was always kind of outdated. And so being able to see the organizational structure and how everything rolls up was a great benefit. And several supervisors and managers would say, oh, I don't have that person anymore. They left, or that was a work study. I don't have them anymore. But they didn't see that stuff in our legacy system. So it was really cool to kind of spark that interest first thing. But one of the things that I think we've really appreciated since going live is just the ability to change business processes or tweak them or make them better. Super simple. It's not a set it and forget it system. So being able to be agile and make those changes as our school changes, because nothing's ever stagnant in higher education, is just a great benefit to us. And I really think the functional people on our team, all of the work stream leads and architects, appreciate that as well, because before it would take quite an undertaking in order for us to make any updates or simple changes. And so that's one of the benefits that we've seen since go live.
Great, thank you both. Another question came in. I figure it's a good one to kind of right-size some expectations and thoughts. We talked about the banner system that was in place at both your institutions for HCM Fin. What is your student system at this time? Before, I know, Lindsey, you're transitioning this spring, but SLU and NWAC, where are you currently sitting on your student product? And Lindsey, if you want to go first in addressing that.
Banner. We've been a banner school since early 2000s, and so banner for everything.
Yep.
Same here. And Lindsey made a great point at the beginning that I really failed to mention, but one of the reasons we made the selection that we did was the fact that Workday offers the the student option and student modules, and so I think we have a contract with Workday to move towards student, and I'm not sure of what our timeline is for doing that, but we're with Banner currently.
Very good. Thank you both. Appreciate it. As I feel like we've talked about one of our questions that was kind of in our alignment here. So we're going to move on to, what do you believe, as you kind of got going and set up and you're live, that your best enhancement has been, or what is your favorite feature that you have now in your toolbox using Workday since the transition from Banner? And Lindsey?
I would say the mobile app is pretty cool. Being able to get those notifications, since we're all working remote. At NWAC, we've been remote since March 13th, which was a Friday, no less. And I think the mobile app is great, and just the interface with it is real simple and streamlined. It just has a nice feel for it, which gives you a good feel being in the system. And so that's definitely one of the highlights for us.
Yeah. So Lindsey, you stole my thunder earlier. The org charts, my goodness. If anybody has tried, at least for us, all of our org charts were outside the system. And trying to get, org charts updated for 4,000 people. I mean, shoot, just go like 4 layers into the organization. It would take a month to get people to actually update them. And then by the time we received them, they were already outdated. And so probably, and there are a lot of features that I like, and mobile being one of them, but really one of the favorites is that you have instantly updated org charts, which I think are really important to what the work we do in human resources. And I like the fact that you have photos with the org charts. So it's just really, that's a great feature that is valuable to us.
It's amazing how what sounds like maybe a simple thing is a really big thing. Like, a mobile app, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's great. Or having pictures on an org chart can make all the difference in the world. And by the way, collaborative, we use HCM Fin as well for our work. And that org chart is really nice for me. As I joined collaborative, I was able to dig through as an employee to see who my supervisor was and their supervisor, and et cetera, and have photos. And with the nature of our organization being distributed quite broadly, that was really great. So I can get behind that one for sure.
Yeah, I agree. What we found is a lot of the feedback we received from our staff across the institution is a frustration point was they wouldn't know who worked where. Like they knew a person they worked with, but if that person was out, it wasn't clear to them who they would contact. When maybe there wasn't good communication on someone being out, so they could reach out to that person's supervisor, understand kind of who are their colleagues. Really, there's maybe you can't overestimate the value that some of just that ability to know the transparency of it, really how it helped our community.
Cool. No, that's great. Thank you both for that. Could you each maybe expand a little bit on your experience or specific circumstances that made this transition to Workday make sense for you and your institution? Mickey, if you want to kind of talk about that first.
Sure. Well, so it just, for many of the reasons I talked about at the outset, that this was something that in the current environment in higher education and healthcare where we are, like, it's just so dynamic. There's so many things changing. You always hear about the challenges and the pressures of trying to do more with less. And so, to have really found it important to have a system that allowed us to maximize the efficiency of what we do. A couple of key things that I think we got out of doing this were, one is time. So people across the institution found that the system eliminated some of the work that we used to do, paper manual processes, and it freed up time to focus on other activities that provided greater value to the institution that we simply sometimes weren't even getting to. The other is the access to the real-time data, so to inform decision making. I mentioned earlier the comment I had received from our provost, but it's really important when you're making important decisions in this environment that you have the right information. And sometimes if you can't get that information quickly, decisions get made without it. And this is a time where everybody has to be kind of operating on all cylinders so that you're making smart decisions. And then, the cultural piece, the transparency, can't overstate how important it is for people to feel like, the way we operate is transparent. The last one that I'd add, which is a sort of the timing of this was so key, is really being in the pandemic. And so most of our people are working from home. We have certain segments of our population that have to come in because we do have students. We had students on campus this year, had a great year as far as being able to keep students on campus and low COVID infection rates. So really a lot of people did a great job on that, but so many people working from home. If we were still operating in an environment where we used paper approvals, paper processes, needing to, collaborate with 4 different people to get data right, like, I don't know how we would have done it. And so really fortunate to have this tool available to us to get through this last few months.
Great, Lindsey, kind of in the same boat. Is there something at NWAC that really said in this experience for your specific purposes, this really made sense and it was time?
No, I would just echo everything that Mickey said. I think, in higher education, we're all seeing the same sort of roadblocks and just kind of bottlenecks. So no, I don't have anything to add to that.
All right, perfect. So we'll lead into the next question. So for you, Lindsey, could you talk about what you feel like you did right as part of your implementation, getting set up and preparing and kind of getting into the swing of things to successfully launch your first phase of Workday?
Well, I have to give credit to our sponsor. On the timeline previously, you see he had like a road show that he went on in the spring of, I think it was 2019, to get all of the support around campus and to get people's feedback, focus groups, and approvals from our board of trustees, but we had to get approval from the state of Arkansas as well. Gotta love red tape. And so we had to do that twice before we could even kick off, because we had to do it once for Workday and then another time for our implement partners. So he had a lot of energy. He was really excited. And when he passed the torch over to me, to be the project manager. At that time, I was overseeing budget and treasury services. So I was a functional user just coming up to lead the project. And so when we kicked it off, I think one of the things that really helped out in the beginning is NWAC saw the value in having a project management office. We never had one on campus, but they went ahead and saw, for sustainability purposes, just keeping us all together on the project, that a project management office would be the best fit. And so they gave me the project management office, and I was solely focused on the project. The rest of our team, we had 28 people total. We started out with 35. And so the rest of our team was doing their day-to-day jobs in addition to Workday deployment duties, which is data conversion, configuration workbooks, all of the meetings. So in my mind, when we kicked off, I knew our timeline was good. I felt great about our statement of work and all of that. My main focus was, how in the world am I going to keep all of these people engaged in this project for a full year? And because there's so many competing priorities going on outside of the project. And so I sat down and started looking at how I set up the structure. We partnered with Collab. They were our implementation partners, and they have this two-in-the-box approach, which we were really excited about because, you have to help you through the implementation. And so knowing that we had that two-in-the-box approach, I knew it would be very important who I would pair Collab with from the NWAC side. And so a lot of times I think when you go into a project, you think, well, this person is the VP of that, or this person is the controller, or this person is in charge of HR. So let's put them as the architects and leads. For us, it wasn't that way for me. I really staffed our project team according to skills, knowledge, abilities, and most importantly, attitude. Because like I said earlier, creating a people-centric environment is one of the things that we wanted to do with Workday, and cut down those walls, cut down those silos, and really see each other as, oh, we're people and humans. You're not that person who's bugging me to turn this in, or the person who lost this piece of paper that was so important to me. And so by taking all of that down, I think it kind of opened up all of us to work together. But I'll say it worked out really well for us, because when we transitioned to end-to-end, that's testing, which they will tell you, everybody will say, is the most difficult part of an implementation because it's fully customer owned. And so you're talking about test scripts, and you're talking about tracking all of them and the issues. So when we went to remote work, the time we kicked off our end-to-end testing. So I don't want to get on that yet, but did some right when it comes to staffing the leads and the architects, as well as kicking off our end-to-end testing, because not only did we, I want to give all these details right now, but I'll leave a little bit of mystery, but we saved a tremendous amount of hours during end-to-end testing, and we also shaved off, we had 3 payroll cycles in our parallel testing phase, and we shaved off one of those because our payroll was 100% accurate. So there was what you could do, but because we had worked so hard with our testing, and I can get into those details later, we were able to go into production 2 weeks early ahead of our go live date, and the rest of the college getting into the tenant. So it was just a really nice kind of gold star for us to have weeks at the end.
Fabulous. Thank you, Lindsey. Mickey, any thoughts that you have on the same question?
Yeah, a lot of I'd echo a lot of the things that Lindsey said. If I was going to highlight probably 3 or 4 things from a SLU perspective, one is we had an incredible team of functional leads, so really talented people who were on the team who are committed to the success of the project, and were definitely, like Lindsey said, I think making this a people-centric system and focusing on how this is helps our people be successful in their daily jobs. We had people who were committed to that and just really worked hard to make it happen. Another thing we did, like most people would do on a project like this, but at the outset, and you collaborative helped us with this, but we thought it was really important to establish guiding principles that we would apply as decisions came up throughout the project. So we wanted to improve standardization across the institution, promoting innovation, so making sure we're able to respond better to future challenges. Simplification, we're not always good at simplification, but we decided that was a core guiding principle. So wherever possible, we were going to simplify things. And then increasing or empower accountability. So really making sure that we gave authority to people in their jobs to do the work that they could do. And we use those guiding principles, we circulated them across the institution and at the leadership levels, so that as we went through the project, when we encountered a place where there was a question on should we go one way or the other, or should we do something, we kind of pulled those out and relied on those, and that really helped. The other, two things were a lot of communication on the front end, and every avenue we could use to communicate, we did. And then we really tried to be inclusive in how we went about setting up the system. So not only did we communicate to people, we tried to get feedback. We included key stakeholders in, architect sessions and configuration test sessions and the testing sessions. So we could hear from them, and we could, if we found a problem, something that really couldn't work, we'd know it and we could address it. And those were some of the key things for us.
So implementations like this feel like an opportunity. At least that's what I would say. They're an opportunity when you're doing a large ERP or a student information system. What would you say that you learned about SLU or NWAC respectively over the course of your implementation and project? Mickey, if you want to go first.
Sure. Well, we learned that we can be nimble and flexible to accomplish important things quickly, which was the stated goal of the institution. I've been talking to Lindsey beforehand. I know they really focused on that, did that. And I think that was one of those things, like, we often take years to do things. And we didn't really think that was an option for us. And we had the right, we learned if we get people aligned and bring the right people into the process, that we could get this done. And also recognizing that, like, when we talk about flexibility and being nimble, that we're going to do something, but we're not done. Once we finished, we will continually be able to evolve to meet the needs. And that was a commitment we made, but was really important. And I think that understanding if you get the right alignment, the right people together, you can do things quickly. So that was something I guess I took away from it. I don't know, Lindsey?
Yeah, I think so too, making decisions quickly, as well as empowering functional users that are on the team. In my mind, this was an opportunity to create something bigger and better. It's not like I've been on a lot of ERP deployments, but I have done a couple of things with my time at NWAC, and every time we would come out of adding on a new system or a new feature, you could just see that there was a collective, a sense of accomplishment from the group. And what I really wanted to kind of hammer on our team going into this deployment, because there's so many different personalities, and you just never know how it's going to work out. But I can give a pretty good example of how it worked out for us. Our banking and settlements lead left in May. So we had a finance mass exodus in May during end-to-end testing, where our controller, assistant controller, and one of our senior accountants left. Some were retirements, so it's not so bad. But end-to-end testing, fiscal year end coming up, and I need a banking and settlements workstream lead. So going into the project, I told the team, y'all can make this as great of an opportunity as you want. I'm not going to hold you back. Here are your roles, have a conversation, kind of get the best fit for their flow. Here are your roles. However, if you want to sit on a work stream because you think it's interesting, or you might have a cross-functional impact, you are more than welcome to sit on a work stream call and listen. However, there is a core group that makes decisions, and so please be mindful and appreciative of their agenda and time. So one of those work streams is banking and settlements, and our Director of Treasury Services, sat in that work stream just because she thought it was interesting. She didn't do the bank reconciliations or any of that stuff, but she started out on the front end collecting student payments, and so they eventually posted to finance. And so she sat in just to make sure she could, keep up to speed with payments and how they hit Workday and the bank. So at the time when we had that finance mass exodus, I was thinking, wow, I guess who am I going to put in this work stream lead role now? And wouldn't you know, my little Teresa over here, who had been sitting there the whole time learning and very intrigued about it, I was like, she's the perfect fit to step into this role. So we asked her, and she said, okay. And so we didn't lose any time as far as completing our testing and our final configs and even data conversion. So just very fortunate for that. But I mean, those are things that you should be thinking about, because people come in and off the project all the time, or life happens. So who are you going to put in those roles? We also assigned on our work streams, you have a 1A, that's the main person, a 1C and 1D, plus, whoever's joining. And so in other times, if someone had to leave or something came up, we would just go down the road, like, okay, well, who's that 1B? Okay, put them in that role. Who's the 1C? Okay, put them in that role. So those are some of the ways that we were able to keep our momentum going, and as people were coming on and off the project.
Lindsey, I'll just jump on one thing that you said that reminded me of one of the things we learned, or one of the really positive things we came out of this is, you're right, you do have those changes that occur midstream, and you're like, how are we going to get this done, or who's going to do it? And I didn't always have like that planned out as well. But what I found is we saw some people really unexpectedly step up and learn and step into roles and really expand their career, and provided real opportunities, and it gave those people the opportunity to kind of really take a next step in their career that maybe they wouldn't have had that opportunity, wouldn't have thought about it without, absent that presenting itself. So that was something that was a real positive coming out of ours.
Same here. We had quite a bit of that as well, which is good to see. Like, that's what I wanted, because we're in Banner now. We're going to Workday. It's a whole new horizon, so you got to think of things differently. I'm glad to see that y'all had some up and coming stars that really shine bright.
Fabulous. Thank you both. In interest of time, I'm going to ask one more question, and we'll make sure that if there's anything else from our attendee list, we're in good shape. So we have a number of attendees in all sorts of phases of their current status. So some are thinking about Workday, some are about to kick off an implementation. What would you give as advice to those institutions that are about to follow in your footsteps or are already following your footsteps? And Mickey, if you want to answer that first.
Yeah, sure. So maybe I would approach this with maybe things we did right, and then maybe something that if we could have a do-over, we might do. So from the doing right side, we held focus groups where we regularly brought in a broad group of key stakeholders to get their feedback on what we were building and showing them how it worked. And that helped us identify things where we needed to course correct early, and that was really important. So that was a real positive thing we did. The other thing, some things I've already talked about would be in this list, but the other thing is we created at SLU what we call the Workday Champions Network. So it was a volunteer group of people from across our community who wanted to learn about the system and really become ambassadors for the system and the implementation. And so there were like 250 people who participated in this. And the group met monthly during the last few months of the implementation. They offered feedback, but really more importantly, when we went live, they became people who were on the front lines of helping people adapt to the system and know how to use it. And they were they were there to help people in a way that our immediate staff probably couldn't have handled by themselves the volume. So it really, not only has it provided help, but it also helped us gain adaptation quicker within the institution. One of the things that we would have maybe given more attention to or detail to is, one I would say is data. So I talked about one of the reasons for the change was the challenges we had with data, but really on the front end, as you're getting ready for the data conversion or the implementation, doing a lot to make sure your data is clean and ready to go before you begin that process, because if it's not, it became really time consuming and painful. And sometimes on the other end, you have some cleanup to do that can be hard. And the other is reporting. So we were really focused. We had a lean team, so we were very focused on making sure the system worked the way we wanted and it was right. We weren't able to give as much attention to on the back end, the reporting. So that's an area where giving a lot of attention to that, I think, you catch up and it works fine. But I think that's an area where we would have given a little more attention. And then the last thing, if I go back to the things we did right, and I hate to do this, but Brian, I'm going to flatter your colleagues. We didn't work together, but the colleagues from Collaborative, I mean, making sure you have the right partner was really critical to us. We had a great chemistry and a great team that we worked with, and we would not have gotten to the finish line the way we did without having really that great partnership with our implementation partner.
Thank you, and maybe we get to work with each other more in the future. That'd be awesome. But appreciate that. Lindsey, any thoughts, final advice that you would give to an institution following in NWAC's footsteps?
Yeah, so my advice would be start with the end in mind. If your whole vision is because of Workday Student, or that's what you're interested in, definitely keep that in mind with HCM, payroll, and finance. It was one thing that I hammered Collab on in the beginning, because I did not want to build something out in HCM and then have to undo it and redo it for student. And so they were great. We brought in student architects and kind of cross-functional people from Collab to sit on our architect workstream calls when we were going through the design and discovery, like early on in our project. So they could say, oh, that's a student touch point, or you may want to be considerate of this. I'll give you an example. One is locations. So I know in Banner, you can have locations for business assets, and you can have them for students, like their home address and with employees. And then you can have locations for your courses, for your schedule. And so I think in Banner, you have all of these different tables. And so like in records, when you're setting up the courses, these are my locations. These are my building codes. This is how I use them. But finance could have something different, and so could HCM. So in Workday, it's not like that at all. One of the foundational pieces is locations. And so when we were initially going to do locations, we were just going to keep it high level. We did not want to get into the weeds of locations, because you could get down into a room level, a closet level, and we just really thought it would be quite a thing to tackle. And so we were going to keep it real high level. But after doing some initial discovery and talking through with Collab, it was really just a good time for us to go ahead and get all of our locations built out, like buildings, rooms, classrooms. So whenever we do move to student, it's just like they just pick it up and they don't even have to mess with it. So we did build out our locations all the way down to like the nitty-gritty detail, but it was a huge undertaking, I'm not gonna lie, but it's also a very proud moment for us, because we've already given a huge piece to student and they don't have to worry about it during that implementation.
Thank you. Okay, so we're reaching time. Stephanie, I didn't know if you had anything else you want to jump in and make final comments for our audience. We've been answering questions as we can. Hopefully, this has been a very useful experience for everyone. But Stephanie, I didn't know if you want to chime in one more time.
Yes, no, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone on the call for joining today, and thank you to Lindsey and Mickey and Brian for a wonderful presentation and fireside chat. I think this was really valuable, and I hope everyone on the line found it valuable as well. And like you said, Brian, I think we did cover questions as we went, so I don't see any right now, but if any come in at the last minute once we close here, I'll be sure to follow up with you as soon as possible. So I think that's it for today. So thank you all, and hope to see you guys again in the new year.
Thank you. Appreciate your time, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.